Hey guys, it's Vinnie here, and today I'm going to show you guys how I wired my entire 3-bedroom house and passed all of my inspections. I'm going to show you guys what to look out for and what to expect, as well as just my overall experience doing all of this. I do want to mention I am not a licensed electrician. This video is for entertainment purposes only, and I just wanted to show you my entire process and what I've encountered while doing all of this work. Alright, so I just want to give you guys a quick overview. My fiance and I purchased this house about 1.5 years ago. Chose to redo basically everything inside of this house. Electrical, plumbing, HVAC, the sheetrock, add all kinds of stuff. So this video is just going to show you the electrical side of what we did, just a brief overview, and I'll walk you guys through a little bit of the permit process and kind of what went into all of this. Alright, so what other place better to start at than the electrical panel itself? So we have a standard 200 amp service coming in, and over on the left side is a lot of the old wires that were here, and they weren't too pretty. So down on the right side over here is all of our new circuits that were installed, and this is just kind of going to be what I want it to look like in the end process. So everything is labeled very neatly and well, routed throughout the house. And this is just the way I chose to do it. A lot of these other wires that are old will eventually be replaced. We just have not gotten that far yet. But I do want to say we have passed all of our inspections and we are good to seal up the house. So this is going to be an overview of basically everything we had to do to get to this point. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like. The wires that are yellow, which is our 20 amp circuits coming out, and I labeled pretty much everything as best as we could to get it to the point where I know where every wire is, where it's going, what it feeds, and yeah, and there's not really going to be many questions after we're all done. So this is like one of the main beams in our basement, and we ran our electrical mostly along this, and then it jumps off through each floor joist bay and feeds to whatever bedroom or whatever room that, the wires want to run to. What you see zip tied right here hanging is the old wires that are yet to be ripped out. The inspector was okay with me doing this just because he knows that they will be removed in the near future, and they are neatly put together, so he was okay with that. And now I'm going to just show you the different colors of the wires and what it means. So starting right here, the white wires are 14 gauge wires. That'll hold 15 amps. The yellow wires are the 12 gauge wires, and they hold 20 amps. And then for the AC unit, we needed to use a 10-2 wire, and that's like 30 to 40 amps. I forget which it is, but that's just for, more heavy electricity appliances. A key thing for me in this entire build was to make sure all the wires were neatly organized, labeled, and once the walls are sealed up upstairs, I wanted them super labeled so I knew where everything went, and I'd have no questions later on when it comes to after you're finishing the house up, you're hanging stuff up. 10 years goes by, you're not going to remember everything. So the way that I did it was just future-proofing it for myself, and maybe for whoever else lives here in the future, if that's the case. I wanted to show you guys for our outside electrical, we actually put a 1/2-inch PVC pipe through the wall. So I had to drill a hole through this wall here. I put a 1/2-inch PVC through it and then glued everything in. I cemented it on the outside, and I used like this, some type of epoxy glue on the inside. It's just to seal everything up. And then that way I could cleanly fish my wire through the wall to the outside outlets. We also did the same thing, but for the floodlights for the outside. All right, here we are in one of the bedrooms. And again, this is for a floodlight, and it's a 1/2-inch PVC pipe going through the cinder block wall, cemented and glued in. And then that just allows you to securely throw a 12 gauge wire through it to power on your lights. Something important to mention about this is if you do this, make sure that 1/2-inch PVC pipe is sloped downwards towards the outside of your house. So if water ends up getting into that box outside, it doesn't drip into your house, it stays out of the house. So everything that goes from the inside of the walls of your house to the outside must be sloped slightly down towards the outside of the house to allow for proper water drainage if in the case water gets in there. I'm gonna do my best to show you guys the bedroom electrical first. So I ran all my wires through the studs at 2 feet. So every hole that's through that has a wire going through the stud is at 2 feet. And my box height is 16 inches off of the ground. Coming over to a switch. To the top of the box is 54, and I did that for all of the switches around the house. Something to note that wherever you have electrical wires passing through studs, like this here, you need a nail plate in front of it. That's just what they're gonna require by code when the inspectors come over. That's just what they're gonna say. I would recommend this anyways, depending on, regardless really, if you're doing your own sheetrock or someone else is. If you have these in place, there's a lot less likely of a chance that someone's gonna hang your sheetrock and put a nail or a screw right through your wire. That can cause damage to the wire, which later on or right away could cause a fire. So that's a big safety thing. Also, they don't want any air to be able to pass through holes in the stud or behind the stud. So that's why you guys see this fire caulking spray foam here and in the holes. So every hole that the wires go through was fire caulk spray foamed all the way down the line, all the way around, as well as behind the studs. This is just, again, one of those codes, and something I didn't know right away before I did everything. So I was actually like a week away from calling the inspectors over, and that's when I realized, oh, I need to fire caulk spray foam every single hole. So an electrician friend of mine that I had asked had mentioned that to me. He said it's now pretty much the standard code for most areas. And sure enough, I called my inspector up and asked them personally, is this something you guys require? They said yes. So I went ahead and I did that. All right, coming over to where some electrical passes through the floors. Same thing applies when the electrical passes either through a stud or going down to another floor. It must be sealed with fire caulking spray foam. That's just, again, another code. I did it for the electrical, like for this outlet here, but then I also wanted to show you I had to do it just for this little tiny wire. This is for our thermostat. Anything that goes through there, they're gonna require that. So that's just a big tip for you guys. And then you're also, again, gonna want the nail plates wherever on both sides, where any wire passes through. You can see the nail plates there as well. All right, here we are at the switch in our living room. This is gonna have 2 switches in it, but I made it a 3-gang box, so in the future, if I need to add a switch, I have the room. This is just a part of the pre-planning things that I did. And so what we have is a 3-way fan light, which it's a fan with a light on it, and then just 3-way lights. And so when we were calling our inspectors over, they had told me to make sure that I had everything tied together as far as our grounds, pigtailed, our neutrals, and then our hots, and have everything stripped and basically be ready to put a receptacle or a switch into the box. So I did this with all of our switch boxes as well as all of our outlets. And then I also, just to step ahead for myself, I cut a piece of sheathing off and labeled everything. So this is to the TV OL. I just abbreviated outlet OL. Some people like to put receptacle. You can put whatever you want, however you're gonna remember it. But I basically just slip that over the wires. We're gonna tape all this up and close it when we paint everything and once the walls are on. And then when I peel that tape off, I can say, okay, this is the TV outlet. This one goes to the outlet to the right, which is right over here, you know? So it's however you wanna really label it so you'll understand it best when you go to install your receptacles. So if there's really anything I can recommend for you guys to do is really do your research and try to find out as many codes in your specific area that there is before you go to do all of this kind of work. It's definitely a great idea to call your inspectors, and when you run into a problem and you're unsure of it, before you call them out and kind of make a fool of yourself, or make a big mistake where they're going to look at you funny, ask them first ahead of time. You can do it by phone or email. It's really easy, and they'll tell you how they want it, and it's going to be specific per county or state that you live in. Also, another place I learned you can ask some good questions is at the electrical supply houses. Everyone's going to have different ones depending on where you're located, but I did find that going to like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, they typically don't know as much as you would think they would. So you're better off asking an electrician that's in the trade that may work around your area, or again, go to the electrical supply houses. They might be able to guide you into the right direction if you're looking for more information on specifics. Another important thing to note is when you're looking at trying to get specific parts, like for instance, I needed to get a fused disconnect for my AC unit outside. Well, I don't know what that is, and a lot of other people who don't do this every day really don't know what that is. So a little Google search gives you an idea of what it is, right? But going to a electrical supply house somewhere, those guys can really describe to you and explain what each fuse disconnect is and what they might recommend. Sometimes you can get the box itself, but you might have a trouble finding the fuses depending on the season. So if it's summertime and everyone's using their AC, and everyone's trying to turn their AC on, and all of a sudden they realize, oh no, my AC doesn't work, and what could it be, this and that. Well, the contractors that are out there in the field fixing these things will stock up on those fuses because they know 9 times out of 10 that's probably going to be their issue. So when I went to go get my fuses for my AC unit, I had trouble finding them. I ended up going to like a Billows electrical supply, and they had 2 left, which was exactly what I needed. I was very lucky. But I did previously go to many other Home Depots and Lowe's, and nobody had them in stock. So that's something I also learned, is electrical supply places can help you out with more than just little odds and ends. They can really help you piece together what you need to complete your project. So yeah, when we first bought this house, there wasn't any ceiling lights, and that was something we definitely wanted. And I'm just gonna give you a little walkthrough as to what we went with. We did these recessed lights, and these are like the ones that come with the whole box and everything in them. All you have to do is run the wires to them, and then there's these little connectors in this box on the side right here that they wire into. And basically we did this in the 3-way system, so I can control the lights from a switch on that side or on this side of the room. And that's like a pretty standard thing a lot of people do in most houses, but this house was very outdated and did not have that. So I guess my tip here would be to think about really what you want in your house before you just start the work. Maybe it helps to walk through a newer built home or one of your friends' houses or your parents' home and see, what's done, what do you like, what do you not like. You'll come up with a lot of different ideas, and it'll help you in your planning process to just figure out what direction you're trying to go and really everything you're going to need for it. So another thing that goes along with planning is just trying to picture how you're going to live in this house. What we realized is in our living room, we wanted to hang the TV on the wall. So I reinforced the wall where we're going to hang it. That way I don't have to try to find studs. I can hang that thing wherever I want. I drew a line. I found the center from wall to wall. Where's the center? Here's the center. So if I put the TV here, when we hang it up, it's going to look good. It's going to be centered. And then what I did was I measured off of this edge of the box over to the line where that center line is, and I drew it here. So now I can measure from here to here and say, okay, we're 3.5 inches off of this box. Once there's sheetrock, I'm not going to be able to see this. So 3.5 inches off of this box is the center line of that wall. That's going to be the center of my TV mount. Why I'm explaining this is to show you that we're going to have a big TV here covering this area. So instead of having cords coming down from the TV down to this outlet, we put another outlet up on the wall. And then this box over here is going to carry our Ethernet cables and possibly HDMI or coax, whatever else comes of it. So just pre-planning is really the key to doing a successful, very nice job of electrical throughout your whole house. Here I'm just showing the wires that run along. This is all for our lights in our living room, and everything has to be fire caulk spray foamed. In our bathroom, we have a wire running to a new fan, and you can see right up there I left a big loop, and that's just for extra wire. So if anything goes wrong with this fan or something happens and I gotta pull more wire through, I have a little bit of extra. That's just a little tip that most people had told me, so I'm gonna pass that along to you. Okay. Here we are in the bathroom. Looks like there's a lot of wires running through. That's because there's a bedroom on this side, then you have a bathroom on this side. So we only have 2 outlets in this bathroom. Now they do have to be GFCI if they're within a certain distance from a water fixture, such as a sink, a bathtub, the kitchen sink, wherever. You have to look up your specific code as far as how far the distance is. But if they're within a certain distance, let's say it's 3 feet or so, you have to have GFCI. Now what helped me was I wrote GFCI on here, so now I know this is a GFCI outlet. The bathroom in specific has to have its own circuit for the outlets and its own circuit for the lights. So they can't both be on the same circuit according to my code, and both outlets have to be GFCI. Now we ran a light up to here, which is for our vanity light. Something I had to picture in my head was, when this bathroom's finished, how do I want it to be? You know, we have a vanity in the middle. I'll have access to both outlets on either side for a hair dryer, for whatever else you have. And then how high up do I want my light to sit on or come out of the wall? And that's something that's preference. Ours is 84 inches up, but you know, yours might be only 80 if you're shorter, or if you're taller, it might be 90. It's all really preference. All right, so we chose to do an interconnected smoke detector system. It's all hardwired, and we used 14-3 wire throughout the house. That's all of this white wire. So one wire will come in to feed the power. It'll connect to this connector that's tucked up in there, and then it'll continue along to the next smoke detector. So when one smoke detector goes off, the whole house's smoke detectors are gonna go off all together. And I think that's a new code. It's really, honestly, probably the safest way to do it. They had told us that previously, before we had done any of this work, we just had the smoke detectors that stuck in to the wall and they're battery operated. Those were okay. But since we were gonna do basically all new construction, that this would be required to be able to pass our fire inspection. So yeah, just wanted to show you guys. It's a typical standard first alert smoke detector. Some are a combination. In areas like a hallway, the one that I just showed you up there is actually a smoke and a CO detector. That is also another code specific thing for us. But basically, how the inspector wanted these up, you know, he wanted them all hardwired. And these come with a connector right here, which is very thin wire. I think that this wire is like a 18 gauge or so. And yeah, this is an 18 gauge wire, but they want you to run the 14 gauge and tie it into these connectors that are tucked into the box. And so when the inspector comes, he wants that all tied together with this connector in there. Once he's done inspecting, the guy can sheetrock, and all you got to do is pull out this little white connector and plug it right into your smoke detector, and you're good to go. And that's how they want it situated before they come out to do an inspection. Another thing to be mindful of when you're doing your own electrical wiring is to make sure you're not kinking anything. So yeah, there's that thing with the bend. Don't bend them too tight, and the inspector's gonna fail you for that. Another thing is when you're pulling wire, you don't want to yank it. You really want to try to be careful when you're feeding it through. And when you're like putting wire staples over stuff, if you nick the wire and you really damage the wire, you're probably better off just replacing it now rather than hoping that it's okay. You don't want to seal your walls up and then have a damaged wire, and now you got to pull a whole wall out out just to replace the length of the whole run, you know, because of one damaged spot. So just when you're pulling the wire through, be careful. If you're banging a hammer to nail the staples in, I would say just be really careful. If you hit the wire like too hard and it's dented and damaged, you see the sheathing ripped, it might be better off just being replaced. Another little tip, I chose to go with these plastic wire staples. They're a little bit safer in my opinion than using the standard metal ones. The metal ones are cheaper, but they have a lot better chance of cutting into this sheathing of the wire, causing there to be potential damage to your wire, which is no good. So just a tip from me, to be safer than sorry, you just rather do the plastic ones, and that way you don't have to worry about them cutting into your wire. And they shouldn't be nailed down extremely tight to the wire. It should just be enough to kind of hold it in place. But like you can see, I can kind of wiggle my wire back and forth through here. You just don't want them clamped, smashing the wire down to the stud. So yeah, that pretty much is about everything with our electrical. I didn't get too detailed into this video because there's a lot of different things that we came across, but most of it mainly had to do with just planning everything. If there's just one big piece of advice I could give you guys, is to just plan what you're doing. Try to picture what you want, write everything down, everything. Call your inspectors, call your electrician friends, whoever you know. Get as much advice before you go to do something this big, and that way when you are in the process of doing it, it'll just flow super smooth, and it'll actually be pretty enjoyable, because running electrical, in my opinion, is pretty easy. It's really not that hard. The hardest part might be trying, if you want it to be organized, that's one of the hardest parts of physically doing it. If you do it correctly and you do it safely, then there's not as much to worry about. So when you go to wire your electrical panel, don't wire it while it's hot. Just switch off the main breaker. You know, don't risk that. You don't need to. That makes it a lot easier when you're pulling wires through the panel and doing all the rest of the work. You know, it just makes it a lot easier knowing that there's no electricity there flowing, so you don't have to worry about getting shocked. Another thing is label everything as you go. When you do that, you'll thank yourself later on when, you know, say you walk away from the job for a week or two because you went on vacation or something else happened, whatever. You can always come back to it, and if everything's labeled, you know exactly where it's going and where you were at in your own project. All right, so I think I covered most ends of this video for the electrical side, but if you guys have any questions for me, leave them down in the comments. We'll get back to you. If this video helped you guys out at all, definitely leave me a like, please. And if you guys are looking for more of this kind of content, hit that subscribe button, because I have my entire house ripped apart, and I have plenty more videos coming your way with all different kinds of things that I did. And I'd be more than happy to explain my process with either the physical work, the planning side of it, or the permit side of it, really all of it. So if you guys have any questions, you know, I'll be willing to make more videos on this stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I helped somebody out there and gave you some insight as to what's fully involved in this as a homeowner. And I appreciate your guys' support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.